Today, we're going to be looking at by far the biggest and also the most popular bootleg Plants vs. Zombies plush set that has ever been released. This set contains a total of 51 different plushes in it, so this is going to be a pretty long video, so I'm just going to get right into it. So yeah, with that said, welcome to a look at the Plants vs. Zombies modern bootleg plush set. Starting out with the first plush, we have the pea shooter. Now, one thing that you'll notice about all the leaf bases on this plush is that they look really bad. The main reason for this being is that they have huge dimples in them. The reason why is because they're trying to copy the limited edition plushes which have dimples in them but not this deep. And basically every single plush that has a leaf base on it has these weird dimples on it. Even plushes that aren't based off of the limited edition plushes still have them for whatever reason. And also just the leaves in general are just really small and they're not the correct shape or size at all. The stems on this plush are kinda well stuffed. A lot of the times though when you get these plushes they'll be pretty understuffed and they won't be able to stand up that well. And for the pea shooter's face, the majority of the time the shooter part of the pea shooter's face is just really small and is not the correct size. As well, the middle of the head is just really wide for whatever reason, and then it gets really small in the front of it, which makes it end up looking pretty weird. Also, the eyes are just completely wrong. As well, they're looking opposite directions, and a lot of the time they're really far apart, which makes them look really weird. And the leaf on the back of the head is the exact same as the normal pea shooter, so it's probably the only detail that they actually got correct on this plush. And if you want any of these plushes besides the few rare ones, you could look on eBay or Mercari, but I won't be pointing out the rarity on these plushes as well. Most of them are just really common, but I will point it out on the extremely rare ones. Next up we have the sunflower. Now the leaf base and stem are the exact same as the pea shooter, so the leaf base looks horrible and the stem could get understuffed pretty easily. The petals around the sunflower's head look horrible as well. They're just way too small, not the correct size at all. They also just aren't the correct shade of yellow and they look pretty weird. And for the actual sunflower's face is the correct color and the embroidery isn't too bad, but a lot of the time the embroidery can fall apart because these plushes are just very obviously cheaply made. Just by looking at them you could tell that. So yeah, basically the only part of the plush they got somewhat correct is the color of the face and also the stitching on it. Moving on, we have the walnut. Now this is based off of the first design of the limited edition walnut plush, which is actually a pretty obscure plush, so I don't really know why they based it off of that. But yeah, for the shape of the walnut plush is really easy to make, but somehow they kind of messed it up because this plush is just really understuffed, so a lot of the time it won't be the correct shape. So yeah, somehow this company actually managed to mess up a walnut plush, which is like one of the easiest Plants vs. Zombies plushes to make. But yeah, the embroidery on the face isn't too bad, but everything is just way too squished together, especially the eyebrows, as well they're obviously not supposed to be that close. The eyebrows are also just very far apart from the eyes and they should be closer to them, and just overall the embroidery just looks weird on this plush. There's also felt in the eyes, so it could collect dust and debris, and the stitching is really bad, so it could fall apart pretty easily. But yeah, it's honestly impressive that they managed to mess up one of the simplest Plants vs. Zombies plushes. Moving on, we have the Cherry Bomb. Now this looks very similar to the Lynxen 2 Cherry Bomb plush, except there's one key difference. This one is being extremely low quality. As you could probably just tell by looking at the eyes, but they're made out of this really cheap embroidery material which just falls apart extremely easily, and basically every single plush in this set uses it, so it falls apart really easily and it doesn't really look that good. And for the cherries themselves, they're sort of well stuffed so they could keep their shape, and the stem is bendable so it could break because they only have cheap metal inside of them. They also have the felt leaves which are only glued on so they could fall off, and since they're made out of felt they could collect dust and debris. But yeah, all they did is basically take the Lynxen 2 Cherry Bomb plush and basically messed up every single detail about it and made it a lot more low quality. Next we have the Potato Mine. Now the dirt on the bottom of the plush looks really weird most of the time, mostly because it's just really far apart. And there's also just way too many dirt pieces on the bottom of it, as the actual Lynxen Potato Mine has a lot less and it also just looks a lot better in general. But yeah, they could also fall off the plush because they're only glued on, so it could make it look really weird. And for the embroidery on the face, it doesn't really look too bad, but it does kind of look inaccurate. The main reason for that though is probably not the actual face, and it's probably the dirt, because the dirt is supposed to be a lot closer than the face than it actually is, mainly just because the dirt is just really small in this plush, so it kind of makes the rest of it look weird. And for the actual mine part of the plush is fully gray and it doesn't have any red on the top of it, which is obviously it's supposed to have. And well, that part of the plush doesn't really stand up that well as well, but could get really understuffed. Moving on, we have the Snow Pea. Now, the Snow Pea's leaf base and stem are the exact same as the pea shooter, except they're just a darker green color. And while the head of this plush is also the exact same as the pea shooter, so the shooter part of the plush is always really skinny, while the middle of the head is always just really wide. And while the eyes have the exact same problem, most of the time they're really far apart, and they also are facing the wrong direction, but they actually do have blue eye shine in them, which is a detail that I'm surprised the modern bootleg company even included. As well, a lot of the times they skip out on small details like that, so it's surprising to actually see it there. But yeah, the spikes on the back of the head could get bent and damaged pretty easily, mainly just because they're made out of a felt material. But yeah, they basically just took the pea shooter pattern and just got rid of the leaf on the back of the head and just changed it into spikes, and the eye spikes are probably the only part of the plush that actually looks accurate. Next up, we have the Chomper. Now, there's actually two designs of Chomper, but we're going to be starting out with the first design. Now, this design just doesn't really look that good, mainly because they just had to squish all the details onto a really small part of the plush, as for whatever reason they made the head just way too small. And they also for some reason made the eyes way too big, so they take up a really big part of the plush, and a lot of the times it looks like they're combining together with the nose because sometimes the stitching touches each other. So a lot of the times the face on this plush looks horrible, and also the teeth are too skinny, and basically every single part of the plush on the face looks bad, including the football zombie. As well, the football zombie, not only is it made out of a felt material, but it seems like it's just really poorly copied as well, but it just seems to be a lot duller and doesn't really have that much color to it. The spikes on the top of the head could get really easily bent and damaged, and one thing that I don't really know why they did on this plush is that they kept the spikes the exact same size but shrunk down the head, so it makes the spikes look huge. And while the leaf base and stem on this plush don't really look that good, and the stem could get understuffed pretty easily. And well, for the second design, the leaf base is the exact same as basically every single other plush in the set, and the stem is purple. The stem is also missing the leaves around it, so it looks inaccurate, and the Chomper's face looks weird. As well, once again, they made the eyes just way too big, and the nose looks basically the exact same as the first design. They also have the spikes on the head, but they don't look huge on this plush because they actually made the head a normal size, if not a bit bigger. You will notice though, they did use a darker green and also a darker purple color on the Chomper plush, which is kind of a really unnoticeable detail, but it's still there. The felt teeth on this plush could get damaged pretty easily because they could easily get bent and damaged because what was made out of felt. But a lot of the times when you see this plush, the mouth is just really stretched out because the cardboard used to make it just wasn't really that good. And while the cardboard could break pretty easily, especially if you open and close the mouth a lot. Next up, we have the Sunshroom. Now, I'm pretty sure this plush isn't based off of anything, and I think it's one of the few unique modern bootleg plushes, as well. I can't really find any plush that compares to it. And well, that's honestly a good thing that no other Sunshroom plush looks like this, as well, but it looks horrible. First off, the face has no detail. It's literally just two black dots with a smile, so yeah, it looks really bad, and it has no detail showing you that it's actually a Sunshroom. And well, for the cap of the Sunshroom, for some reason it has a huge dimple in the middle of it, and it also has that throughout the rest of it, so yeah, I have no idea why they did that as well, but it doesn't really make a lot of sense to have it at all. So I don't know why they did that. It just made the plush look a lot more inaccurate, even more than it already did. And well, it has a few dots on the top of it, which are just a slightly darker yellow color, and in my opinion, this entire plush just looks horrible. As well, it barely even resembles what a Sunshroom is supposed to look like, and in my opinion, this is probably the worst Sunshroom plush that was ever made, due to just everything being inaccurate, basically. And basically every single one of these look different due to quality control, so some of them have a really small face, while others have a really skinny face, or like a wider face, or just a larger one in general. So yeah, basically every single one of these Sunshroom plushes look different. Next we have the Fume Shroom. Now, the embroidery on the face really isn't too bad, and it actually looks pretty accurate, especially for a modern bootleg, which is surprising. For some reason though, it is a really dark green color when it's actually supposed to be a lighter green color, so yeah, it is an inaccurate color, but besides that, the rest of the face looks fine. And well, unlike the Sunshroom, it actually doesn't have a huge dimple in the middle of the cap, so that is a plus about this. So it already makes it a lot better than the Sunshroom plush, and well, the actual shooter part of the plush is only glued on, so it could actually fall off. And well, they have some lighter purple dots on the top of it, and in my opinion, this plush doesn't really look that bad at all. And to be honest, it's one of the better looking modern bootleg plushes, and in my opinion, it's really not that bad. Moving on, we have the Hypno Shroom. Now, the embroidery on the face actually looks really good and in my opinion is one of the better modern bootleg plushes. It's also a unique one as well. Before Lynx and 2 made their Hypnoshroom plush, there was no other Hypnoshroom plushes besides this one, so this one's actually a unique plush that the Modern Bootleg company made. And well, there's honestly just tons of variants of this plush as well. The cap of this plush basically comes in all different colors. And the designs are basically just different colors on the top of them, and it's kind of hard to tell which is which, especially with a few designs because they basically look the same. But yeah, even plushes that are the exact same design could look different from each other, so yeah, honestly it's kind of hard to tell which variant is which, and basically every Hypnoshroom plush made by this company is just slightly different. And while the cap on this plush is actually made out of a slightly more fuzzy material than the rest of the plush, which is also a good thing about it. But yeah, in my opinion, this is probably the best Hypnoshroom plush that was ever made, as though the Lynx and 2 one doesn't really look that good. Moving on, we have the Doomshroom. Now, the Doomshroom plush was already inaccurate when it was already made, as well. The plush that it's based off of is the Lynxen plush, which is already inaccurate because it's fully gray. So there was no chance that the modern bootleg plush was ever going to look accurate because the plush they based off of was already inaccurate, but they somehow made it worse. As well, if you couldn't tell by the eyes, for some reason they're facing downward and they just make the Doomshroom look really sad. And also the top of the head of this plush is just way too skinny, and sometimes it just looks like it morphs into the bottom of the plush because sometimes they're basically the exact same size, mattering on the plush you get. So yeah, for whatever reason, they stitched on the eyes to this plush to make them look really sad for whatever reason. And honestly, I have no idea why they did that, as well, it's pretty simple just to change the stitching to make sure that it's actually straight instead of being tilted. So yeah, I have no idea how they messed it up, but somehow they messed it up and they just kept it. Moving on, we have the squash. Now, one thing that's weird about the squash plushes is that they actually have the definition on them, which is surprising, but they didn't make the squash tall enough, so the face just looks really low down. As well, for whatever reason, basically every single squash plush is just really squished down on the face. So a lot of the times it makes it look like the squash plush is basically just fully flat, so it makes it just look really strange, and I don't really like it. So I don't really know how they didn't make the squash big enough, but they managed to put a lot harder detail as putting definition. So yeah, somehow they didn't make the easy detail of making it big enough, but managed to put the definition, which really makes no sense. But yeah, the embroidery itself really isn't that bad, and it's actually pretty accurate looking. It's just very hard to tell because the face is just really squished. Next up, we have the jalapeno. Now, the face on this plush looks horrible, and yeah, it's obvious. Like, that's really all I have to say about the face. It just looks horrible. The main reason for this is that they didn't make the pupils as big, so it makes the eyes look weird, and basically just the mouth itself is just way too small, and basically every detail about it is inaccurate. The inside of the mouth is also for some reason a brownish color, and also the teeth are just way too skinny, so yeah, it just makes the face just look really strange. Also, the lily pads on this plush are just way too skinny, so they don't look wide enough at all. And well, for the actual jalapeno shape, they did an okay job with it, but the stem part just kind of looks weird as well, but doesn't really have the correct bend to it. But yeah, this definitely has to be one of the worst modern bootleg plushes just because of the face. Moving on, we have the three-peater. The three-peater's leaf base actually doesn't have the weird dimples in them, and they actually look a somewhat normal size, so yeah, that's actually one good thing about this plush. And once again, this is actually a unique plush because from what I could tell, there was no other three-peater plushes that were made before this one. The stems for the three-peater are pretty nicely stuffed, and a lot of the times the head on the side kind of squished the middle head, so the middle head will actually just be behind them for whatever reason. But yeah, for the actual three-peater faces, the shooter part is only glued on, so it could actually fall off, but that's pretty unlikely to happen from what I could tell because these plushes were actually slightly better made. And while the stitching on the face looks okay, and they also have leaves on the back of their heads, which look pretty good. But yeah, once again, just like the Hypnoshroom, for a unique plush is really not that bad. And it's actually better than most of their bootleg plushes that were copied off of others, so yeah, it's pretty impressive that they were able to make better plushes without copying people. Moving on, we have the Blover. Now, I have barely anything to say about this plush, as it's literally just the limited edition Blover plush, but just with a horrible leaf base. As well, the leaf base and stem are the exact same as basically every other plush in the set, so they just look horrible, and it's also just not that well stuffed. And well, for the face and the leaves, they are kind of understuffed, so they don't really look that good most of the time, and the stitching on the face is pretty low quality. But yeah, that's all there really is to say. It's a pretty simplistic plush. Next, we have the Split Pea. Once again, just like the blower, the leaf base and the stem just really aren't that good and they look really weird. And well, for the repeater head of the split pea, it looks kinda good, I guess. Sometimes the face is just really long though, so the shooter is really far apart from the eyes and it makes the head look really weird. And while that also goes for the normal pea shooter head, sometimes the front of it's just really long and skinny, so it looks weird. And while the shooter part of the plush could also fall off because it's only glued on, and the embroidery on the face doesn't really look that bad. And well, same thing with the pea shooter face, they actually have eye shines in the pea shooter face, which is definitely an improvement from the actual pea shooter plush. But yeah, once again, the head a lot of the times just look really weird. Moving on, we have the starfruit. Now obviously, this isn't the most accurate looking starfruit plush, but it's by far the most popular design of it. And well, honestly, it really doesn't look that bad. They got the star shape pretty well done, and it's also pretty nicely stuffed. The embroidery on the eyes doesn't really look that bad. It does have felt inside the eyes though, so it could collect dust and debris. The mouth on this plush kinda looks weird, especially because it has some pink on the end of the mouth, which I'm pretty sure is supposed to be like the cheeks or something. And it also has a stem on the top of the plush, which looks pretty accurate. But yeah, this is definitely the most popular design of the starfruit plush, but it's definitely not the most accurate looking. Moving on, we have the magnet shroom. Now, this is based off of the limited edition magnet shroom, and it actually doesn't really look that bad. As well, the actual magnet part of the plush is pretty nicely shaped, and it looks pretty accurate. The embroidery does kind of look weird, especially because the eyebrows are black instead of a gray color, which is one really easy way to tell if it's a bootleg or not. But yeah, for the really small stem and mushroom, they basically look the exact same as the normal limited edition plush. The only really bad part about this plush is the embroidery on the face. The gray part of the plush also isn't as fuzzy as it's supposed to be like the original. Next up, we have the cabbage pole. Now, the leaf base on this plush is the exact same as the majority of the plushes in the set, so it looks really bad. The only thing that they really changed with the leaf base is that the edge of the leaves are for some reason really big, and they're mostly just really well stuffed for whatever reason. And it honestly makes the plush look worse, because well, the leaf base is just really small, and it makes it look even weirder having a really big part at the end of it. And well, for the cabbage part of the face, it's glued on, but it could fall off pretty easily. The embroidery on the face looks pretty accurate, it just doesn't really look that good, mainly just because every single part of the plush just doesn't really look that good, so it makes it look pretty bad. As well, overall, this plush is just really not the correct size, as well the leaf base is too small, and also the cabbage part is too small. So yeah, basically every single detail on this plush is inaccurate besides the embroidery. Next up, we have the kernel pole. Now, the actual texture for the kernel pole looks really weird. I don't know how the texture feels or what it even is made out of because I never owned this plush, so I can't really tell you what it's made out of, but whatever it looks like, it looks really weird. The embroidery on the face also just kind of looks weird. I can't really tell you a specific reason why, it just kind of looks off. As well, if you put it next to the normal Langston kernel pole, you could obviously tell that the eyes are just kind of way too small, and same thing with the eyebrows. The leaves on this plush are basically the only part of the plush that looks good, except the glue could get dried, so the leaves could actually fall off. And that'll look really bad, as well the leaves will just kind of be hanging there, and it'll just look really strange. But yeah, in my opinion, this is definitely one of the worst kernel pole plushes, just because the texture of it looks really weird. Next up, we have the garlic. Now, instead of being a normal garlic, it's actually the garlic angel, based off of the fake Plants vs. Zombies 2 leak. And while the bootleg company behind this probably didn't even know why it had wings, they probably just saw Linkson make it and said, hey, we're going to copy that. But yeah, for the actual garlic part of the plush, it doesn't really look that bad, and it does actually have some definition on it, just like the squash. And well, that's not the only thing they took from the squash, is once again, the garlic is just really squished down, just like the squash plush, so it ends up looking pretty weird most of the time. And well, the embroidery on the face doesn't really look that bad, and it's actually probably the most accurate part of the plush. The wings also don't really look that bad, and they actually have some stitching on the side of them just to give them a bit more detail, which is surprising that they did that. But yeah, some details like the embroidery on the face and also the wings look pretty good, but the rest of the plush just doesn't really look that good, mainly just because it's just really squished down most of the time. And the main reason for that is just because this plush just really wasn't that well stuffed. Moving on, we have the marigold. Now, leaf base and stem are the same as the sunflower, and while a lot of details are very similar with the sunflower, as well, the face is the exact same shape. And one thing that's pretty strange about the petals on this plush is, well, mattering on the plush you get, they could actually have a different amount of petals. As well, I have seen some marigold plushes that were part of this set that actually do have a good amount of petals, and some that don't really have any at all. And it's really strange that they don't really have a set amount of petals, as well some of them have very few, like this one only has 6, while others have a lot more. And I honestly have no idea why they did that. Sometimes they're also different sizes, so yeah, it's just kind of a really weird quality control thing. But yeah, the embroidery on the face doesn't really look that bad. The eye shines and also the eyebrows are way too lime green and they should be a bit darker. But besides that, I would actually say they did a pretty good job with it, and the face is actually kind of like a lightish orange color. Moving on, we have the melon pole. Now, the leaf base on the melon pole actually is one of the only parts of this plush that actually look good, as well as actually a normal leaf base. The only thing that's kind of weird about it is it's just a way too lime green color, and same thing with the rest of the plush as well. Basically, this entire plush is just a lime green color. And while the stem on the side of the plush is on the wrong side as well, it's actually supposed to be on the right side. And while the embroidery on the face kind of looks weird, mainly just because the eyes are facing left instead of just being like straight. So yeah, that is one detail that does kind of look a bit weird. But yeah, besides that, the melon pole is kind of well stuffed, mattering on which one you get. As well, some of them are just really understuffed, so the shape of the melon doesn't really look that good, but others are really well stuffed, so the shape of the melon looks pretty good. But yeah, for the iron-on this plush, to give the melon pole a bit more detail, it cracks really easily. The main reason for this being that they just use a really low quality iron-on material that's really cheaply made, so it could fall apart extremely easily. So it is actually just one big problem with this plush, and it's probably the worst part of the entire plush. As of a lot of the times when you see this plush, especially when it's used, and even sometimes when it isn't used, a lot of the times it's just extremely cracked. So yeah, besides a really bad iron-on, the rest of the plush doesn't really look that bad. Next up, we have the twin sunflower. Now, the leaf base is the exact same as the normal sunflower plush, and just like the normal sunflower plush, the stems could actually get understuffed pretty easily. And well, they honestly just took the sunflower's face and just put them on two different sizes, so yeah, they're basically the exact same as the sunflower plush, except they have these lime green eye shines. The faces on this plush are also just like a really whitish color for some reason. I don't really know why they made them so light, but yeah, if they weren't as light, they would actually look a bit better. But yeah, the petals on this plush are once again made out of this like feltish material, so they could get bent and damaged, and they're also just way too small and there isn't enough of them. But yeah, if they made them bigger, they might actually have enough of them, but because they're too small, it doesn't really look that good, and it just doesn't really take up as much space as it should. But yeah, once again, this is probably the worst twin sunflower plush that has ever been made by any company, as well, but it's just really inaccurate looking. Next up, we have the Gloom Shroom. Now, this is once again a unique plush, and it's actually extremely rare. As well, there's very few documented owners, and if you want this plush, you can look on eBay or Mercari, but it's just extremely rare and hard to find. But yeah, for the actual plush itself, the embroidery on the face looks pretty good, but it is pretty low quality just because it's part of the set. The shooters on the side of the plush could actually fall off because they're only glued on the front of them, and well, all the black part of this plush is made out of an iron-on material, so they could get cracked and damaged pretty easily. But yeah, the face on this plush is actually pretty nicely stuffed, so it does look pretty good, and well, the bottom of the plush, which is a dark green color, is also pretty well stuffed. And well, I would actually say this is one of the most accurate looking plushes in the whole set, and is by far the best Gloom Shroom plush that was ever made, but that's not really that much of a surprise, as well, there's very few Gloom Shroom plushes that exist. So it's really no surprise that this one's the best, but yeah, it's pretty cool that they actually make unique plushes that are better than their bootleg plushes based off of other people. Which honestly, I don't know how that makes any sense, that they could copy another company and get it to look worse, but they can make their own unique plushes and they look 10 times better, so yeah, I have no idea how they managed to do that. Next up, we have the cattail. Now, this plush has two different designs, both of them basically having all the exact same details, besides the cattail part of the plush just being a darker brown color on the original design. And while all the modern releases of this cattail plush have a much lighter cattail, which I have no idea why they did that, as well, it made the plush even more inaccurate. As well, if you didn't know, the limited edition cattail plush is supposed to have a dark brown cattail on it, and well, guess what the original had? It had exactly that, but for some reason they got rid of that one detail that actually looks somewhat accurate. So yeah, because they got rid of that detail, basically the entire plush looks inaccurate. As well, the leaf base has some really weird dimples, and they just don't really look that good at all. And well, the nose on the cattail is really far out, so it looks pretty strange, and that's also a really easy way to tell if it's a bootleg or not, as well the actual cattail nose actually doesn't go out, but the bootleg goes really far out. And well, it has a plastic nose and also has some embroidery on the mouth and the eyes. And well, for the cattail's hat, it looks fine. The ears aren't correctly shaped though, and they look pretty strange, as well they're not really that well stuffed, so they could get pretty weird looking. But yeah, for the actual tail on the cattail, it's pretty well stuffed, except on the new versions they made it a strange color instead of being a darker brown color, and the actual spike on this plush is a pink color. Which does make sense, as well the limited edition cattail does have a pink spike on it, but it is supposed to be red. Moving on, we have the winter melon. Now, the winter melon once again has two designs, and I'm going to go over the first design first. And well, the first design is a fully blue color, and I actually like this design more, as well I think it just looks better overall. As well, the leaf base is fully blue, and also the stem on the side of it's fully blue, so yeah, it's definitely a really good looking plush, and I actually like it a lot. But just like the first design of the cattail, the first design of the winter melon is actually pretty rare, and it's hard to find. But yeah, the first design of the plush definitely looks better in my opinion. Well, it has all the exact same problems as the original melon pole. As well, the iron-on material could get cracked really easily, even if the plush isn't used at all and is brand new, it basically just cracks instantly. And well, the face has all the exact same problems because it's literally the exact same face as the melon pole. And well, for the second design, they really didn't change a lot, as well all they did is make the stem and also a leaf base just a lime green color. And well, technically it is supposed to be a darker green color, so this version is more accurate to the game, but I do like the blue version a bit more. And well, the face and the actual melon part of the plush is the exact same as the normal melon pole and also the first design of the winter melon, obviously. So it has all the exact same problems with the iron-on material. Moving on, we have the imitator. Now this is actually based off of the Plants vs. Zombies 2 imitator, which makes sense because the Plants vs. Zombies 1 design, the imitator doesn't have a plush made of it. But yeah, this plush actually looks extremely accurate, mainly just because it's a really simplistic plush. The only bad thing about it is that the weird hat thing on the top of it is actually black instead of being a green color. So yeah, besides that, the rest of the plush basically looks completely accurate. The only really other detail that kind of looks weird are the eyes, just because the embroidery on the outside of them are just way too thick for whatever reason. Moving on, we have the apple bomb. Now this plush uses the exact same leaf base and stem as the pea shooter, and well, the head on this plush just looks really strange. As well, it's really small compared to the actual apple bomb plush, so it looks really strange, and so the details on the face look really big. As well, the eyes and the mouth just look way too big because the head's too small, and while the embroidery around the eyes are just really thick, so it ends up making it look really strange. And well, for whatever reason, the stem on the top of the plush is a really light brown color instead of being a dark brown color. But yeah, the neck on this plush is really floppy because it is really understuffed, so it could fall over pretty easily, and it's pretty hard to find a good condition version of this plush. Next up, we have the Bursa. Now, the leaf base on this plush doesn't actually have the weird dimples, which is a pretty rare thing for this set. And well, for some reason, the eyes and the mouth are just way too small on this plush, and one thing that I notice about all these plushes is that they can't really get the face right. As well, on plushes like the apple bomb, they're just way too big, but on this plush is just way too small, so it never seems that they could get them right. But yeah, for the actual shape of the Bursa, it doesn't really have a lot of detail to it, but it does look fine. It's just not really that well stuffed, so it could lose its shape. But yeah, the leaf on this plush could get unstitched from the top of the Bursa plush because it's not really that well stitched on. The leaf doesn't really have any detail to it. But it also doesn't really look that accurate to the actual Bursa leaf, and it kind of looks strange, and it's also made out of felt, so it could collect debris and dust pretty easily and get bent. Moving on, we have the Dark Tomato. Now this is the first design of the Dark Tomato, as well there's no bootlegs of the second design. And well, the leaves on the bottom of this plush sometimes look good, but sometimes they also just look really bad. As well, sometimes they have the correct bumps on them, but sometimes they don't, so yeah, it just kind of matters on which plush you get if it'll look good or not. But yeah, for the actual shade of yellow on this plush, it's kind of just a really light yellow color and should be a bit darker. But yeah, for the embroidery on the face is definitely the most accurate part of the plush, as well the embroidery looks pretty good in my opinion. And well, it's not completely accurate, but it's also not completely inaccurate like the majority of the details on the plush, so yeah, it's probably the best looking part of the plush. But yeah, for the top of the plush is a really lime green color and could get unstitched and damaged pretty easily. But yeah, it's definitely not the most accurate bootleg, but it's still really not that bad, especially for the embroidery. Next up is the Dragon Beauty. Now the leaves on this plush are the exact same as the Dark Tomato, as well sometimes they could look good, but others they could look horrible. And well, for the embroidery on the face is probably the best part of the plush, as though it doesn't really look completely accurate, but it still doesn't really look completely inaccurate either. So it's probably the best part of the plush in my opinion. Well, for the rest of the plush, it could actually lose its shape really easily, mainly just because it's not that well stuffed. But a lot of the times they use the wrong shade of pink on this plush, so it could end up looking pretty weird. But yeah, I would say that the Dark Tomato definitely looks more accurate than this one, especially on the leaf base as well. From what I could tell, it seems that the Dragon Beauty is a lot easier to get a really bad looking leaf base on, as well the Dark Tomato actually looks good a lot of the time. Next up we have the Bloomerang. Now the Bloomerang's leaf base isn't the same as the majority of the plushes in the set, so they actually look somewhat normal. And while the leaf base actually looks pretty similar to the actual Lynxen plush, which is a pretty surprising thing about this set. But yeah, the embroidery on the face looks pretty good. The pupils are a bit small, but besides that, the eyes look fine, and same thing with the mouth. The top of the Bloomerang plush has a really light blue color when it's actually supposed to be a darker blue, and well, same thing with the yellow on the boomerangs, they're just way too light. And it seems with this plush, they just made all the colors a bit too bright for whatever reason. The only part of the plush that could really easily get damaged are the yellow parts on the boomerangs because, well, they're made out of an iron-on material, so they could get cracked and damaged. This is also one of the few bootleg plushes to actually use a color string instead of just using a normal white string, as well, the majority of the time it comes with like a dark green string. Next up we have the Bong Choy. Now the embroidery on the face looks very similar to the Lynxen plush, it's just a bit too small. As well, instead of taking up a lot of the face, it takes up not that much of the face, and also the eyes are just way too squished together. So it ends up making it look pretty weird, and it would honestly look better if they made them just a bit bigger. The arms are stitched onto the side of the plush and also have some sort of material inside of them to make them bendable. But this material could break pretty easy, especially if you continue to bend them as well, but they'll just break over time, especially because this is a bootleg company, so it's most likely made out of some really cheap material. And while the top of the Bong Choy plush actually has a few layers of it, so yeah, it's a pretty cool detail that the Lynxen plush has, and I'm surprised that they put it onto this plush, as well, usually they simplify the Lynxen plushes, but on this one they didn't. But yeah, just like a Bloomerang, the really most noticeable detail about this plush is that the colors are just slightly off. As well, once again, they're just slightly too bright to be the actual Bong Choy plush. Next up we have the Iceberg Lettuce. Now the leaf base on the Iceberg Lettuce looks pretty good and it's pretty accurate looking, and it seems to use basically the exact same leaf base as the Bloomerang, obviously just blue. And while the eyes on this plush are nicely stitched on, there's really no bad details except for the front of the plush, as well, for some reason the extra detail around the plush just sticks out really weirdly. As though instead of going fully around the plush, it's usually just in the front of the plush and it's not that well glued on, so you could usually see inside of it the majority of the time, so it makes it look really strange. And I honestly don't know how they messed it up, as well, but instead of just putting it all around, they made it really big only in the front. And since they didn't glue it on that well, a lot of the times it'll just hang there as well, but it's not actually glued onto the plush, as well, usually it ends up falling off. And this is definitely one of the worst looking plushes in the set, just because the front of it just looks really strange. Next up is the Spring Bean. Now for the actual shape of the Spring Bean, they didn't really get it too well, as well, it's the complete wrong shape. And while the eyes and mouth don't look anything like how the Spring Bean actually is supposed to look, and the pupils are for some reason really big, and the inside of the eyes is made out of a felt material, so it could collect debris and dust. But yeah, for the actual spring part of the plush is for some reason really small and just doesn't really look that good at all. And honestly, it looks very similar to the stem on the top of the head a lot of the time, so yeah, it just is a really bad part of the plush, and instead of making an actual normal spring on the bottom, they made this really weird looking stem thing that looks nothing like an actual spring. You know, but a lot of the times the spring could look even weirder, as well, the material used inside of it could fall apart pretty easily, so a lot of the times they'll end up just completely breaking, so it won't even be bendable. So yeah, this is definitely a really bad Spring Bean plush, and I would definitely recommend getting the Lynxen 2 Spring Bean instead of this one, because well, that one actually is good. Next we have the Chili Bean. Now this bootleg is actually based off of the Maroon Chili Bean, which is actually a rare variant of the Chili Bean, but it doesn't really look that similar at all. As for the actual shape of the plush, it doesn't really look that accurate, as it's just way too skinny and not wide enough. And all the embroidery on the face basically looks the exact same as the normal chili bean, but it's just really low quality. As the eyes could get damaged really easily because there's felt inside the eyes, and also the embroidery used on them falls apart really easily. So yeah, basically every single part of the plush just looks really bad, as it's not the correct shape, and also all the embroidery, even though it looks accurate, it's still really not that good because it falls apart extremely easily. Next up we have the lightning reed. Now the lightning reed's leaf base looks really weird, as it basically uses the exact same leaf base as plushes like the pea shooter, as it has some really weird dimples. And I have no idea why Bloomerang and Iceberg lettuce have normal leaf bases, but this plush doesn't. It just doesn't really make a lot of sense why some look good and some don't. But yeah, for the actual lightning reed plush, it actually looks really good, except there's a few parts of the plush that could get damaged really easily. First off, the bottom part of the lightning reed that makes the rest of the plush stand up could get under stuff, making it impossible for the lightning reed to be able to stand up straight. And for the embroidery on the face is really small, but it is pretty low quality, but it looks fine. And the green part around the head is really where this plush begins to fall apart, as since it's only glued on, a lot of the times when you see this plush for sale, specifically when it's used, it'll just be completely missing or mostly fallen off. As most of the time when you see it for sale, it's either completely missing it or is like half unglued, so yeah, it's just a really bad part of the plush. But besides that, it seems that the rest of the plush is really good, but I wouldn't really recommend getting it. You should probably get a better lightning reed plush. Next up we have the laser bean. Now once again, just like the chili bean, they didn't really get the shape right at all. And they actually basically used the exact same shape as the chili bean, so that's why it looks inaccurate. But yeah, the embroidery on the face looks fine. It is pretty low quality, and for some reason the outline of the eyes are made out of this really light green embroidery, which isn't supposed to be like that. And same thing with the mouth. It's made out of this really light green embroidery, and I honestly have no idea why this company likes to make everything on their plushes just a lot brighter, as it makes it look more like a bootleg. But yeah, the inside of the eyes could get damaged because they're made out of felt, and same thing with the antenna on the head, as it was made out of a felt material, so it could get bent and damaged really easily. And the antenna used on this plush is actually more accurate than the Lynxen plush, as it has a little ring around it, which the Lynxen plush doesn't actually have, but besides that, the rest of the plush is more inaccurate than the Lynxen one. Next up we have the Citron. Now there actually seems to be two different variants of this plush that look very similar. Here's the first one. It looks a bit more inaccurate, except the eyebrows are stitched onto the head, the inside of the eyes are for some reason green, and the shooter part of the plush in the middle is orange. So yeah, this is a much more inaccurate version of the Citron plushes. I have no idea why the inside of the eyes are green, and I have no idea why the shooter part of it is orange. And here's the much more popular modern bootleg Citron plush, which you'll usually get if you order it from somewhere. As you can tell, the inside of the eyes are actually normal, the shooter part of the plush is actually normal, and the eyebrows are made out of a felt material. So the eyebrows are actually a downgrade, as the glue on them could dry and they could fall off. But the eyes on this plush actually look pretty good, and same thing with the shooter part of the plush. It is the wrong color, as the outside of the shooter is actually a pink color when it's supposed to be an orange color. And for whatever reason, they made Citron a more yellowish color than an orange color, as I said earlier, this company just likes to make their plushes really bright and not the correct colors. And the leaf base on this plush is just completely wrong, as they'll be used as a normal leaf base when Citron actually has a whole unique leaf base. But it doesn't even seem that the bootleggers attempted to make that unique leaf base, and instead they just put the same leaf base as like the Bloomerang plush has. But yeah, this is definitely a much worse version of the Citron plush. Yeah, I would definitely recommend getting the Lynxen one instead, as this one just looks really bad. Moving on, we have the bamboo shoot. Now, just like the majority of the plushes in the set, they made the green on this plush just way too light, as it was a really light green color when it's supposed to be a darker green color. And the embroidery on the face actually looks really good on this plush, except they did make the eyebrows and the mouth just a way too light green color, but besides that, it actually looks pretty good. The only really bad thing about the face is sometimes it's really squished down, as that part of the plush could get squished down pretty easily. But yeah, for the rest of the bamboo shoot, it actually looks pretty good. The dirt on this plush isn't accurate though, as instead of just using the normal dirt material, they actually made them all separate chunks of dirt, which is obviously not supposed to be like that. And well, they're also made out of a felt material, so they could get damaged pretty easily, and they do look kinda weird. But yeah, besides that part of the plush, the rest of the bamboo shoe actually looks really good. And it's actually one of the better bootleg plushes that are copies in the set. Next up we have the fire gourd. Now once again, just like the last plush, they for whatever reason made the yellow color just way too light and it should be a bit darker. And while the face on this plush also kind of looks weird, the main reason for this is that the eyebrows and the eyes are just way too close together and they should be a bit more spread out. Same thing with the parts of the cheeks. They're supposed to just be slightly further apart than the eyes, but yeah, besides that, the rest of the face looks fine and the embroidery looks actually pretty good. It's just the way that they place the embroidery which makes the plush look weird. The leaf is surprisingly the right shade of green, and while the actual stem on this plush is made out of a felt material, it has some iron on the bottom of it, so it could get damaged. But yeah, I would definitely say that the bamboo shoot is better than this plush, but this plush still really isn't that bad. Next up we have the Heavenly Peach. Now for some reason this plush is just way too skinny and it's just really long. Instead of the Heavenly Peach being wide like it's supposed to be, it's just really tall for whatever reason. I have no idea why they did that. It just makes the plush look really weird and it makes the eyes and mouth just look really small because they're really close down like where they're actually supposed to be. So this plush actually should be a bit squished down. But yeah, for the actual embroidery, the eyes and the mouth look fine. The only detail that I don't really understand on this plush is that for some reason they added bags under the eyes. So it ends up making the Heavenly Peach just look a bit tired for whatever reason. I have no idea why they did this, as though this was never on the original plush, so I have no idea where they got that from. And it also was never used on any art of the Heavenly Peach, so I have no idea why they added that. It was just really unnecessary. But yeah, for the leaves on the bottom of the plush, they're actually pretty well detailed and they're stitched onto the Heavenly Peach, but they could get unstitched because they're pretty low quality. But yeah, this plush honestly wouldn't be that bad if they just made the Heavenly Peach just like a normal size and not really tall, and also got rid of the bags under the eyes. Next up we have the dogtail. Now the dogtail uses the exact same pattern as the cattail, except this one just looks slightly better in my opinion. And well, there's actually two variants of it, the normal variant having a dark brown hat and the other one having a light brown hat, which is the exact same color as the rest of the dogtail. And well, in my opinion, the second design just looks a lot worse, as well it just kind of looks weirder, and I think the original design is the best. But don't get me wrong, they're still both good plushes. The leaf base on this plush kind of looks weird, as it uses the exact same leaf base as the cattail, so it does look inaccurate. But this plush doesn't really have to look accurate to anything, as it's a unique plush, so they can make it however they want it to be. The face looks pretty good and it uses the exact same shape as the cattail, except the colors obviously changed, and they also made the nose, instead of being pink, a dark brown color. They also got rid of the mouth on this plush and just embroidered on eyes and eyebrows that look pretty good. And well, for the hat on this plush, the ears are stitched down to the side so they can't really fall off, which isn't on the second variant, as well they're just kind of hanging there instead of being stitched on. And well, for the actual tail part of the plush is pretty nicely stuffed, and on the end of it they have this really fuzzy part which I actually really like. But yeah, this is definitely one of the best unique plushes that they made, if not the best one in my opinion, as it just looks really good and is really unique. Next up we have the small pepper. Now this plush basically uses the exact same base design as the jalapeno, except they obviously changed a few details. First off, this plush is facing the complete opposite direction as the jalapeno, as the lily pad is facing the other way, and same thing with the small pepper itself. And while the embroidery on the face actually looks really good and it looks pretty nice. And while unlike the jalapeno, it's not really weird looking, and this one's actually pretty nicely embroidered on, except it could fall apart pretty easily because the embroidery is pretty low quality. And well, for the jalapeno shape, I would actually argue that they did a better job on the jalapeno shape on the small pepper than the actual jalapeno plush that they made. As though the top of the stem even has the little curve that the jalapeno doesn't, and it also just has a more defined shape on the small pepper. So yeah, honestly, the small pepper is just a lot better than the jalapeno plush in the set in my opinion. And once again, it's just a really good unique plush. Next up we have the 4-leaf blover. Now it uses the exact same leaf base and stem as the blover, so that already makes it worse than the others. As though the stem could get understuffed pretty easily, making it hard for the 4-leaf blover to stand up straight. And well, for the rest of the plush, it basically looks the exact same as the modern bootleg blower, except the leaves on the side are just slightly positioned more in the middle, and well, they just put an extra one on the bottom of it. And well, they also changed the embroidery on the face to a completely different design, so the eyes are nicely embroidered on, and same thing with the mouth. And honestly, in my opinion, the face looks pretty good. And well, honestly, this plush would actually be really good if it wasn't for the leaf base and stem. Now, moving on to the zombies, we have the basic zombie. Now, the faces on this plush are obviously just really low quality, and for whatever reason, the outline of the mouth is made out of some brown embroidery for some reason. And well, the teeth on this plush are just way too skinny, and basically every single detail on this plush just looks really weird. And well, besides the face, I would actually say the rest of the plush isn't too bad. It just seems that everything is just really not that well stuffed, and is also just a lot more low quality, like the shorts not being that well stitched on, so they could fall off pretty easily. The stitching on the hands could also fall apart pretty easily, and it'll end up making them look pretty weird if that does happen. But yeah, the coat and the shorts are made out of the exact same material as the links and plush, and the tie in this plush also is, so it could get cracked and damaged. The hands on this plush are for some reason really big compared to the arms, so it looks like the hands are just huge compared to the rest of the plush for whatever reason. And well, besides that, the rest of the plush is just the exact same, but just slightly lower quality than the links and plush. And well, it's honestly just the face on this plush that makes it look extremely weird. And if it wasn't for the face, it would actually be an okay plush. Moving on, we have the hypnotized zombie. Now, I really don't have anything to say about this plush, as though they basically just took the basic zombie and turned it purple. The eyebrows on this plush are kind of weird though, as though they're just kind of a gray color instead of being a purple color, so I don't really know why they didn't change that detail on the face, but besides that, every single other detail on this plush looks fine. As though they literally just turned the zombie purple and made the coat purple, which is all they had to do, so this plush has all the exact same problems as the basic zombie, so it could fall apart pretty easily, just like the basic zombie, obviously. Next up, we have the Buckethead Mummy Zombie. Now, the face used on the Buckethead Mummy Zombie is the exact same as the basic zombie, and well, the body is also the exact same. So the hands are once again just way too big, and the only thing that they changed on this plush are the clothes. As well, the bucket on this plush is basically the exact same as the normal Buckethead Mummy Zombie made by Linkson, so it could fall apart pretty easily because it's made out of felt and also has some iron-on material on it. And well, commonly you'll see the bucket actually fall off this plush because it really isn't that well stitched on. So yeah, this honestly just seems to be a really lazy plush, as well the shirt doesn't really look that good and it has no shorts or pants or anything. So it's just kind of a really low quality plush, especially because a lot of the details could get damaged. Moving on, we have the pirate zombie. Now, the face is the exact same as the basic zombie, and once again, he uses the exact same pattern, except he has different clothes and shoes. First, the bandana he's wearing is based off of the normal pirate zombie, except instead of just being a normal color like that one, is actually a red color. And he also has an earring under the bandana, which is made out of a felt material that could get bent and damaged. The coat on this plush is slightly stitched onto the plush, making it so it's not that easy to fall off, but it could still fall off over time. But yeah, the pants on this plush could get damaged pretty easily, and they're not really that well stitched on, and they're made out of this really light blue color. And well, the only other detail that's changed about this plush are the shoes, and they don't really have any detail on them at all. But yeah, once again, the hands on this plush are also just way too big for the actual arm size. Now we're going to be moving on to the final plush in this huge set, being the cowboy zombie. Now the cowboy zombie uses the exact same face as the basic zombie, and there's really not much else about this plush. As well, the cowboy hat used on this plush is the exact same as the Linkson plush, but just smaller, and is really not that good because it's only stitched on, so it could fall off pretty easily, and there's also iron-on material on it, so it could get damaged. The coat and shorts on this plush could get damaged pretty easily, and the bandana on this plush could very easily get untied, so it could fall off. And it also uses the exact same shoes as the pirate zombie, and they once again have no detail on them. And the hands on this plush are also just really big for whatever reason, just like every other zombie plush, and yeah, that's all there really is to say about this one. And just like the pirate zombie, basically every single detail on this plush just could get damaged really easily. But yeah, this was a really big set, so this was definitely a really long video, so yeah, I hope you enjoyed it, and if you did, then please like and subscribe, and comment down below which plush it is your favorite, and yeah, have a great day.